Discover the incredible journey of baby puppy Ginger, a heartwarming tale of a hidden time machine. In a struggling little town, nestled in the heart of the Midwest, lived a golden retriever pup named Ginger. She was the sparkle in her 10-year-old owner Ellie's life, a vibrant bundle of joy that brightened the darkest of days. With her fluffy, golden fur and playful demeanor, Ginger loved nothing more than running through fields and wagging her tail at anyone passing by. Together with her mother Mary, who worked tirelessly at the diner to keep food on the table, Ellie carved out a world filled with love and yet the weight of their circumstances often loomed like a storm cloud overhead. As winter settled in, Ellie found herself wandering into her late grandpa's cluttered workshop, seeking warmth and connection to a man she hardly remembered. There, tangled in dust and shadows, she discovered a mysterious contraption humming softly. It looked like a bizarre time machine, dimly lit and waiting for a spark of energy. Ginger, ever the adventurer, nudged the glowing device with her wet nose, and in an instant, the world flashed around them. With a blinding light, they were no longer in their workshop but standing amidst a vibrant crowd. Voices rang out with passion, fighting for justice during the civil rights movement. The energy was electric. Ginger's tail wagged like a metronome, matching the heartbeat of the activists rallying for equality. Ellie felt a swell of pride, witnessing such courage. She noticed how everyone rallied together, hand in hand, illuminating the strength of community. When they returned home, Ginger's golden coat shimmered as if dusted in the essence of what they had experienced. Ellie looked at her pup, feeling something shift inside her. Hope burned brighter than it ever had, igniting a fire in their small family that whispered, "We can rise above." But the shadows of their struggles remained, closing in like the icy winter winds. Then came the fiercest storm the town had seen in decades, leaving destruction and despair in its wake. As Ellie and her mother sifted through the wreckage of their home, doubt crept in, threatening to extinguish the flicker of hope. Cold sweat dripped down Mary's forehead, weariness tainting her spirit. Despite Ginger's joyful bark urging them onward, could they really fight against the odds? As the community came together to rebuild, Ellie's heart swelled with emotion. They were not alone. Neighbors helped each other. But with that unity came tension, old prejudices resurfacing. Would they allow this tragedy to deepen the divisions, or could they use this moment to break free from the chains of the past? Ginger's timely return from the past served as a beacon of hope. But in the eyes of their neighbors, would it be embraced or scorned? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As Ellie contemplated the power of her secret, she knew she faced a choice that could alter the path of their lives. Could a little family, fueled by love and the spirit of a golden pup, truly inspire monumental change? As Ginger let out a soft bark, breaking the hushed anticipation that filled the room, Ellie turned towards her mother, their eyes locking in a moment thick with emotion. Would the flame of hope be enough to shift the tides of their entire community? Ellie's heart raced as she and her mother stood there, uncertainty swirling in the air. The room felt charged, as if the walls themselves were waiting for something to happen. Ginger, sensing the moment's weight, wagged her tail and let out another encouraging bark. It was as if she was saying, "Let's do this." Mary took a deep breath, brushing a stray hair from her forehead. "Ellie, do you truly believe this can work? That we can be the change?" Ellie nodded, her small frame vibrating with determination. "I saw it, Mom. I felt the strength of the crowd. If we share what happened, maybe they'll see that we can unite, too." But uncertainty lingered. Could they trust the townspeople to act differently? Or would they cling to the old ways that had divided them for so long? As the storm clouds gradually parted, the town was left in a fragile state. Many homes were damaged, and spirits were low. Neighbors walked around with frowns rather than friendly smiles. But Ellie noticed that some people had already started to gather supplies to help others. The question hung in the air: would their small acts of kindness light the path towards healing, or would old grudges reignite the fires of division? Determined, Ellie grabbed some cardboard and crayons from the table. She began to sketch ideas, visions of how they could reach out to their neighbors. "We can create signs," she said, her voice bubbling with excitement. "Things like 'Together we rise.' And hope starts here. We can invite everyone for a community gathering." Mary's eyes softened. She picked up a piece of cardboard and joined Ellie. Together, they crafted messages of hope, battling against the doubts that crept in. With each stroke of the crayon, Ellie felt the fog of uncertainty lift a little more. Meanwhile, outside, Ginger breezed through the remnants of the town, her golden coat shimmering in the weak sunlight. She approached Mr. Jenkins, the gruff old man who was surveying the damage to his own home. Rubbing against his leg, she looked up with big, pleading eyes. Surprisingly, a small smile broke through his weathered face. Ellie observed from the porch, pleased to see Ginger spreading warmth, even in the face of despair. "Look, Mom, if she can connect with him, maybe we can connect with others, too." That afternoon, with their signs in hand and Ginger galloping beside them, they headed to the community center. To their surprise, people were already trickling in, neighbors who were once strangers now, linked by their shared hardship. Yet, as the gathering began, the air thickened with tension. Ellie noticed a small group off to the side, their faces clouded with skepticism. These were the very people who had always disagreed with her mother about community events. The familiar chill of worry crept back into Ellie's heart. Standing before the crowd, Mary held Ellie's hand tightly. With a reassuring squeeze, she stepped forward. "We've faced storms before," she began, her voice ringing with a newfound strength. "But today, we must choose to come together. It's a choice to stand united in love, rather than alone in hatred." Tears pricked Ellie's eyes as she felt the weight of her mother's words. The room was quiet, all eyes on them. Would love be enough to bridge the gaps? Could the lessons of the past inspire unity? Just then, Ginger darted toward the skeptical group, playfully tugging at a scarf that had slipped from one of their shoulders. Laughter erupted from the crowd as everyone turned to watch. It suddenly felt lighter, the walls of division beginning to crack. But Ellie could still sense a lingering reluctance, like a shadow over the light. Would this spark of joy be enough to ignite a change? As they welcomed conversations with mixed emotions, Ellie felt a familiar thrum of energy in her heart. Just like when they had been transported to the past, there was something transformative in this moment. But deep down she still wondered. Was this enough? Would they, together, rise above their past? And as night fell over the town, a thought nagged Ellie. What would it take to truly mend the hearts of the people? Would they face their fears and embrace the future together? With a determined look, she turned to Ginger. The journey might have only just begun. The light of the setting sun poured through the windows of the community center, casting warm hues on the faces of neighbors who had gathered for the first time in ages. Ellie could feel the shift. A sense of possibility was in the air, like the first hints of long, bitter wind. She looked up at her mother, who was chatting with Mrs. Thompson, their old neighbor. Even though only moments ago there had been hesitation, now laughter trickled through the crowd like a gentle brook. Ginger, still wrapped up in her playful antics, darted between people, fetching fallen items and earning giggles. A mom held up a crumpled notebook that had soared through the air, courtesy of her child's exuberance, and another man joined in, showing off a rubber band he'd caught. Those small moments felt significant. Ellie let out a small laugh, euphoria bubbling in her chest. Look, Mom, everyone's getting along. She gasped, fidgeting with her crayon-streaked cardboard sign. The words together, "We rise," beamed as brightly as she felt inside. Mary put her hand on Ellie's shoulder. "It's beautiful, honey. But we need to encourage them to share their stories. That's how we truly connect." Ellie took a deep breath, her heart pounding with nervous excitement. She remembered what it felt like to be bold after the storm. Let's ask Mr. Jenkins to tell his story. Everyone respects him. With a nod of determination, Mary summoned the crowd's attention. Everyone, let's welcome Mr. Jenkins. As the old man approached the front, Ellie could see the flicker of doubt in his eyes. He had been the face of the town's rifts for years. Would he want to share? Yet, when he began to speak, his voice trembled with emotion. "I've lived here longer than most of you. I've seen our town divided, just as much as I've seen it stand united. After the storm, I lost more than just my home. I lost the connection I had with my neighbors." The room fell silent, captivated. Ellie could sense others nodding in agreement, their hearts being quietly nudged open. "I miss the days when we would come together for barbecues and laughter, instead of pointing fingers and holding grudges. If there's one thing I learned through this, it's that we need each other, more than ever." Ellie felt tears prick her eyes as the warmth of compassion spread across the room. Maybe it's time for all of us to mend fences, to truly live what we preach, he continued, looking directly at the skeptics in the corner. As Mr. Jenkins shared not just his pain but his hopes for the future, a young woman from the crowd stood up. "I've known too long what it's like to let anger consume my relationships. But maybe today we can choose kindness instead." Cheers erupted, echoing through the walls of the center. Hope blossomed alongside determination, the atmosphere electric with possibility. Ellie exchanged a glance with her mother, their eyes wide with disbelief and joy. However, just as smiles began to break out, there was a deep rumble outside, the kind that stirs the gut and makes breaths quicken. All heads turned towards the door, curiosity tinged with dread. Asterisk, asterisk, what could possibly come next? Suddenly, The door burst open, and a group of people from the far end of town, who had kept themselves separate, stepped in. Unsure yet hungry for contact, they clutched the last remnants of barriers within themselves. Ellie's heart raced again. Would this be a moment of further division, or a step toward unity? As the mixed emotions swirled in the room, one question lingered. Could they embrace the unknown and welcome everyone as one? The tension in the community center crackled like static in the air. Eyes widened, and breaths caught as the newcomers hesitated just inside the door, shifting from one foot to the other. Some faces Ellie recognized. Others were still strangers, but all wore expressions tinged with uncertainty. It was a mix of hope and fear, a tightrope walk between opening up and retreating back into the safety of silence. "Okay, let's reach out," Mary whispered, giving Ellie a gentle nudge. "We can't let fear win." Ellie straightened her shoulders, gathering every ounce of confidence she had. "Hi there," she called out, waving her cardboard sign. "We're so glad you're here." The words hung in the air like a breath held too long. Slowly, some of the newcomers began to step forward, faces softening at the warmth of the welcome. Ellie saw one of the women, with a child clinging to her side, step forward tentatively. Her voice shook slightly. "We've been trying to decide if we join." "Didan," Ellie interrupted gently. "We want to hear what you have to say. We need everyone. We can all share this space together." Encouraged by the warmth of her words, the woman took a small step closer. "My name is Clara. After the storm, I felt like I couldn't go back to the park or the store without seeing faces full of judgment. I didn't know how to connect again." "I get that," someone from the back called out. "I was angry too. It hurt to watch neighbors not see eye to eye." Ellie looked around as voices began to rise, each sharing pieces of their story. A man spoke about losing his family's home. A mother opened up about her child struggling to fit in at school, and gradually the walls between them started to crumble. The openness was liberating, as if each shared tale chipped away at the barriers built by resentment. Mr. Jenkins, emboldened by the honest exchange, took a step closer to Clara. "You're not alone in feeling that way. We've all been holding back, thinking we'd be judged. But this is a new start for everyone." Encouraging murmurs filled the room, and Ellie felt a burst of joy each time someone shared their experience. With each new story, laughter mingled with tears, and hands clasped together became a symbol of unity. Small gestures of warmth replaced let-down shoulders and downcast eyes. But then, Ellie noticed a figure hanging back. A young man with a frown, arms crossed tightly as if to shield himself from the growing atmosphere of vulnerability. Something deep within Ellie urged her toward him. "What about you? Do you want to share?" He hesitated, but the sincerity in Ellie's eyes brought his walls crashing to the ground. I don't know. I've been angry. I thought the storm was just a mess we had to clear up, not a chance to fix everything that was broken between us." "Isn't that it, though?" Mary interjected. "Every end can be a new beginning. Look around you." The words flowed like water, settling into the crevices of everyone's hearts. Slowly, the young man uncrossed his arms and took a shaky breath. "Okay, maybe I can try." Ellie felt a swell of hope at witnessing this moment, the turning point, when fear began to lift, revealing a clear path toward connection. It was exactly the spark they needed to light up the room. But just as clarity started to shine, a loud, unexpected crash echoed from the back hallway. Sending everyone tumbling back into uncertainty, Ellie gasped, her heart racing once more. What now? Could the fragile connection they had started to build survive yet another challenge? Would this explosion shake their new foundation apart, or could they stand strong together? The room fell silent, a heavy blanket of dread descending. Everybody turned their heads toward the back hallway, eyes wide with fear and confusion. The sudden loud noise echoed ominously, cutting through the warmth they had just begun to build. Ellie felt her heart race. It was as if the air had been sucked out of the room. She glanced at Mary, who wore an expression of concern mixed with determination. "Let's see what it is," Mary said, stepping forward despite the uncertainty that hung in the air. "Wait," Clara said, gripping her child's hand tighter. "What if it's someone angry?" Ellie stepped closer to Clara, her emotions bubbling beneath the surface. "We can face it together. Whatever it is, we're stronger as a group." Her voice was steadier than she felt. She could see that others were wrestling with the same emotions: fear, anxiety. But there was also a flicker of that newfound unity. The young man who had begun to open up, Jake, suddenly straightened. "If it's something bad, we can handle it. It's time to stop running away." His tone was firm, a spark of defiance that inspired those around him. With hesitance melting away, Mary led the way to the hallway. Ellie felt the need to move, to break the silence that threatened to consume what they had started. The small group followed, their steps hesitant but resolute. As they reached the hallway, the rest of the community center faded away, replaced by their unified front. The hallway was dim, and the air was cooler than in the main room. Every creaking floorboard felt like a drumbeat, signaling their approach toward the unknown. With a deep breath, Mary peeked around the corner, followed closely by Ellie, as their eyes adjusted to the dim light. They discovered the source of the noise. A toppled shelf of supplies, a collection of old chairs and boxes had spilled onto the floor. A small group of kids, faces flushed with mischief, stood nearby, giggling at their own antics. "Well, that's not so scary," Ellie said, breathing a sigh of relief. But just as she spoke, one of the kids turned wide-eyed and blurted out, "We were just trying to help with the cleanup." Mary put her hands on her hips and fake glared at them, but it was hard to maintain any seriousness. "Help. Looks more like a tornado went through here." The group erupted in laughter, the sound bursting like a bubble of warmth through the tense atmosphere. The ice was broken. The connection solidified once again. As they started to help the kids pile the supplies back onto the shelves, Ellie felt hope swell in her chest. Each small act of kindness, the shared laughter, the teamwork stitched tighter the fabric of their community. Yet, in the midst of the chaos, Ellie caught Clara's eye. Clara looked both relieved and nervous, her child still at her side. "This feels good," she admitted, wiping a tear away. I didn't think I could find this kind of joy again." "See, together we can do anything," Jake responded, a smile breaking across his face. But as they worked and laughter filled the air, Ellie's thoughts drifted to what else might be carrying on outside that could threaten their fragile unity. What if the storm had more in store for them than they realized? Could another wave of fear wash over them, tearing apart the bonds they were weaving? Just then, the center's door swung wide open. A figure stood silhouetted against the bright light from outside. The laughter faded, and uncertainty crept back in, filling the space like smoke. Who had just come in, and what could they possibly want? Would this visitor bring more challenges, or would they be the unexpected ally they so desperately needed? The silence that followed the figure's entrance was palpable. Eyes darted from one person to another, searching for answers, for strength. Ellie instinctively took a step forward, her heart pounding as the outline in the doorway took form. It was a woman, drenched from the rain with streaks of mud splattered across her weather-worn clothes. Her hair clung to her face, and the cold wind blew in behind her like a ghost, adding to the chill in the air. Still, there was something fierce in her stance, a fire that flickered even when faced with uncertainty. "Can we help you?" Mary asked, breaking the tension that hung like a heavy fog. Her voice was welcoming yet cautious, a reminder that they had a good thing going and needed to safeguard it. The woman took a step closer, and Ellie could see beneath the layers of grime that her face was painted with determination. "I'm sorry to barge in like this," she began, her voice steady despite the tremor of exhaustion. "My name's Tara, and I need a safe place to stay." The request hung in the air, drawing curious glances among the group. While some faces mirrored concern, others held skepticism. Clara shifted uneasily, clutching her child tighter as if the act itself could shield them from the unknown. "What happened?" Jake asked, his tone softening but still assertive. "Are you in trouble?" "More like in danger," Tara replied, her eyes scanning the room as if looking for a spot to settle. "I was at the old farm last night, and a group of men came through. They were looking for something. I don't know what, but they left a path of destruction behind them." Murmurs erupted, and Ellie felt fear resurface. She looked around, remembering the warm laughter that had just echoed moments ago. "But we just got through something," she whispered, wishing for a moment they could escape reality. "Can't we just have some peace?" Suddenly, the tension broke as Tara rushed forward, her hands raised. "I'm not a threat. I promise. I just truly need help. I ran through the forest. I didn't think anyone would be here for me, but I saw the lights. I saw people." Ellie's heart softened. Despite the rising fear within her, compassion clawed its way to the forefront. She exchanged glances with Mary, whose demeanor remained firmly resolute. "What do you think?" Mary asked, her voice steady as she considered the situation. Each second stretched on, stretching a fragile thread between caution and kindness. Ellie felt the warmth of unity that had just begun to blossom, and the thought of turning away a stranger made her stomach twist. "Maybe we can at least hear her out," she urged gently. "There's strength in numbers. And," she hesitated, "what if we could help someone else heal?" Clara looked between Ellie and Tara, uncertainty flickering in her gaze. But what if it attracts their attention? At that moment the wind howled outside, rattling the windows. Tara seemed to shrink under the weight of their words. "I promise I'll leave if you want me to," she whispered. "I didn't mean to disrupt your peace." Ellie felt a surge of emotion as she watched Tara stand there, vulnerable and exposed. After everything they had just built together, could they really turn their backs on this woman? As the tension hung in the air again, a decision loomed like a storm cloud, heavy and ominous. Just then, the sound of footsteps echoed from outside. "Wait, what was that?" Jake's voice cut through the silence, eyes widening as fear flickered back into the group. Their brief moment of connection shattered, replaced once again by the looming threat of the outside world. What would happen next? Were they ready to face whatever was coming at them together. Or would this woman be the spark that fell into the kindling, igniting a far greater fire than they could imagine? The sound of footsteps grew closer, crunching leaves and splashing through puddles, punctuating the tense atmosphere inside the cabin. Ellie's heart raced, her breath catching in her throat as she turned to the door, half expecting to see more figures, more dangers. "Stay close," she whispered to Clara, placing a hand on her shoulder. They didn't know what was out there, but the cold world outside felt more threatening than ever. Maybe we should do what Tara said," Jake suggested, his voice wavering slightly. "If they find us, we all could be in danger." The group exchanged nervous glances, weighing their decisions against their instincts. With every second that passed, the footsteps drew nearer and shadows danced ominously across the dimly lit room. "No," Mary broke the silence, her voice steady but firm. "We can't just turn her away. If those men are looking for her, they could harm everyone inside. Are we really prepared to take that risk?" Clara shot back, her grip tightening around her child. The fear in her eyes spoke volumes. The close-knit bubble they had created suddenly felt fragile, like glass threatening to shatter with the slightest pressure. "Listen," Tara said softly, stepping forward with renewed strength. "I don't want anyone else to get hurt. But if you let me stay, I'll do everything I can to keep you safe. I've seen what they're capable of." Before she could finish, the footsteps stopped suddenly right outside the door. A heavy silence settled in, thickening the air, and Ellie could almost hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. Tara's expression turned fierce. She hadn't come this far only to give up. "If I can make it through this night, I'll promise to leave first thing in the morning," she declared, her voice growing stronger. "I swear, you won't regret this." Suddenly, a loud knock jolted everyone. "Open up! We know you're in there." 4 voices shouted in unison. Ellie moved instinctively toward the window and peeked out, heart pounding. 2 hulking figures stood in the rain, their silhouettes intimidating. They looked out of place, like dark clouds blocking the sky. "They look dangerous," she whispered urgently, fear washing over her. "They are," Tara confirmed, her voice trembling now. "But we can't back down. They're looking for me, and they won't stop until they find me." Jake took a step closer to Mary when he noticed her hands clenching into fists. She shifted her eyes nervously, caught between the instinct to protect her own and the call for compassion. "What do we do?" Clara asked again, her voice a mix of dread and determination. "What if they come in?" "If we don't answer, they might think we're trying to hide something," Ellie said, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "We need to decide now." Time hung heavy in the air as they stood on the precipice of choice. They could either shelter Tara and face the storm together or push her away and perhaps seal their own fates. Maybe. Ellie started, her heart racing with a mix of excitement and dread. "We could play along, act like everything is fine, but we prepare ourselves for anything." Tara nodded with a spark of desperation in her eyes. "Just give me a moment to center myself, okay? I'll be ready." As the knocking intensified, Ellie could feel the weight of their collective fear, yet it meshed with something else, an unspoken resolve. Every second felt like an eternity, and with the footsteps outside threatening to bury them in uncertainty. They had to confront whatever storm lay ahead, not just for Tara, but for all of them. Ellie took a deep breath and faced the others. together then. Together, they echoed, a fierce determination igniting within the group. But just as they seemed to unite, another knock came, and a deep voice called from outside. "You have 5 seconds to open up before we come in. You don't want to see what happens next." Tension pulled tight, each heartbeat a reminder of their fragility. Would they stand strong together or splinter apart? The answer loomed as dark as the storm outside, threatening to overshadow everything they had fought for. What choice would they make in this moment of truth? Ellie's heart raced. Every loud knock from outside felt like an incoming wave, relentless and threatening to crash over them. She glanced around. The group determination mixed with fear painted their faces. Who would be brave enough to challenge what lurked beyond that door? "Okay," she said finally, her voice steady despite the storm assailing her insides. "On 3, we open the door. Then we stay calm." "Wait," Clara interrupted, her voice strong but shaky. "What if they find out we've got Tara here? They could hurt her." "Hurt us all." Her eyes darted towards the window, where the rain was pouring in blinding sheets, the world outside shrouded in gloom. "We have to trust Tara," Jake said, his voice quiet but firm. "If she's telling the truth, then she know what to do." Tara nodded, her expression a mix of gratitude and fear. Just follow my lead, okay," she murmured, swallowing hard. It was obvious she was steeling herself for something. The knocking became more aggressive, thudding against the old wood of the cabin, echoing through the cold space. "Time's almost up." The booming voice roared again from outside, sending a shiver down Ellie's spine. She counted silently in her head, her heart sinking with each number. When she reached 3, she gripped the doorknob tightly, feeling the rough metal bite into her palm. Together. Ellie shouted, and they all exhaled in unity as she swung the door wide open. The men outside were not what Ellie had expected. They were rugged, their features obscured by shadows and rain. But their eyes, cold and unyielding, sent a surge of panic through her. They loomed like dark storm clouds, intent on tearing through the fragile threads of safety they'd woven. "We know she's in there," one of them growled, stepping forward, eyes darting over the group. "You'd best hand her over now." Ellie stood rooted in place, her breath coming fast. "Who are you?" she forced out, finding her voice somehow. "What do you want with her? Isn't it obvious?" The second man snapped, his irritation palpable. "You're hiding a criminal." "We want her back, plain and simple." Tara took a step forward, eyes fierce. "You must leave us alone." "Whatever you think you know, you've got it all wrong." Ellie felt her body tense. Tara's defiance was unexpected. Was this a show of strength or desperation? The faces of her friends flickered with uncertainty, glancing towards her for direction. Clara clutched her child tightly, her eyes darting nervously between the men and Tara. "We can't trust them, Ellie," she hissed, her voice trembling as fear gripped her more than the rain-soaked cold outside. Ellie took a deep breath, weighing her options. "Let's talk." "You don't have to take anyone by force," she said, the words tumbling out of her mouth as they filled the space between them. The idea of confrontation loomed, but maybe reason could stave off violence for now. A stare down ensued, the looming men sizing her up with disdain, yet in that fleeting moment, something shifted. The cold determination in Tara's eyes ignited a fire in the group. They began to stand a little taller, side by side, An unexpected alliance forming. Time's ticking. Make your choice. One of the men shouted louder, his voice cut through the rising tension. Ellie's resolve hardened. No, we're not letting you threaten us. She stepped forward, sharing the strength of the moment with Tara. If she's a criminal, then let's figure this out like civilized people. The expression on the men's faces changed, uncertainty seeping through their bravado. They didn't expect resistance, and this flicker of defiance from the group was both bold and terrifying. But then, the one in the back raised his hand, signaling. You've made a mistake, he warned, as ominous as the dark clouds above. With that, Ellie realized they might already be too far down the path of confrontation. And as the tension spiraled, the air was thick with impending chaos. What would it take to turn the tide? Would her call for peace push them to act violently instead? In her heart, she felt time slipping through her fingers like grains of sand, each one a moment of precious safety teetering on the brink. As the wind howled outside, threatening to tear through the cabin walls, Ellie knew this was just the beginning of a fight they hadn't expected. How would they survive the storm brewing on their doorstep? The wind howled like a banshee outside, filling the cabin with a chorus of dread. Ellie's voice hung in the air, a fragile line connecting the two factions. The tension coiled tighter, every heartbeat echoing in her ears as she stared into the eyes of the men, determined and ruthless. Try to be reasonable, she said, her conviction trembling like an unsteady flame. We're not your enemies. The lead man's features shifted, surprise cracking through his hardened facade. Enemies? You don't even know who you're dealing with, he retorted, narrowing his eyes. This isn't just about her. It's about what she's caused. And trust me, we don't let anyone walk away from that. Then, let's fix it. Tara interjected, her courage igniting as she stepped forward, challenging. Whatever I've done, I'm willing to talk it out. But you can't just barge in here and demand anything. Ellie felt a surge of pride for Tara, mixed with an urgent chill in her bones. Clara shifted beside her, anxiously glancing from the men to Tara. No, this isn't safe, she murmured, barely above a whisper, but there was no turning back now. The lead man, still locked in his cold resolve, turned to his companions. What do you think? You ready to settle down for a chat with a criminal? He scoffed, an unsettling grin creeping across his face. Enough, Tara's voice rang clear. You want answers? And I have them. Ask me whatever you want, but don't threaten my friends. Ellie felt the room hold its breath. From the darkness of the storm outside, chaos seemed to seep into their sanctuary, though Tara stood firm, a beacon of illicit hope. Fair enough, the lead man replied, his skepticism wavering. Your friend's safety for your honesty. You've got 5 minutes. Spill it. Tara took a deep breath, her eyes darting over her friends' tense faces. What you think I've done, it's not all there. I have information, and there are people after me too. Ellie felt the weight of each second tick away. The men shifted, arms crossed, expressions still tight. They were on the precipice of something dark, and she could sense Tara battling against unseen demons, waging a war of words. Like I said, we want to understand. The lead man pressed, his voice less menacing, more like business now. What's the story? As Tara began to recount her tale, layers of fear and error peeled back. There was a powerful agency involved, far-reaching and sinister, lurking behind the shadows. Each revelation built a fragile bridge with the men, but Ellie could tell their minds were still calculating. The hostility remained beneath the surface, bubbling like the storm outside. Suddenly, a crash of thunder rattled the cabin, and the door shuddered. Clara gasped, clutching her child closer. Ellie's heart raced at the sudden urgency, and she glanced at the men, uncertainty twisting her stomach. "Maybe we should all move this inside," one of the men suggested flatly, a hint of Annie's breaking their previously confident facade. "Are you serious?" She retorted, dismay spilling from her lips. "You think we just let you in here? When it's your lives on the line, you take chances," he fired back, eyes narrowing in defiance. The fear in Ellie intensified. Would they give their lives away for safety? Because one thing was certain, trust was a delicate dance in these moments. Each decision could tip their world upside down. "Just tell me," Tara's voice broke through the chaos. "Will you protect them if I tell you more?" The men exchanged glances, a flicker of hesitation visible, but time was running out, minutes becoming seconds. Ellie felt the storm raging above, resonating with the turmoil in the cabin. They couldn't let fear dictate their survival, but it was hard to see a clear path ahead. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from outside, louder than everything they'd faced so far, and Ellie's heart sank. Something was coming for them. What was that? Jake asked, every bit of bravado gone from his tone. Ellie's skin prickled with alarm. "We need to hurry. I don't think we're alone anymore." And as the wind screamed through the crevices, they all knew a storm was brewing on the rise. One that would challenge everything they thought they were fighting for. Who else was lurking just beyond the shadows? The wind howled outside, a ferocious reminder that the storm wasn't just a metaphor for their fears. The men exchanged uneasy looks as the door rattled with force, almost as if desperate to be opened. Suddenly, the energy shifted. The air around them thickened with dread. Enough games. One of the men barked, stepping forward, his eyes glinting with menace. "We know you're hiding something. We're taking her, with or without your permission." Ellie felt a surge of protective instinct. She turned to Tara, who looked resolute yet vulnerable. They couldn't let fear win. "No," she shouted, surprising even herself. "This isn't how it's going to end. You can't just threaten us." The wind screamed, a turbulent response, rattling the wooden beams of the building. Jake bravely took a step forward, standing shoulder to shoulder with Ellie, forming an unbreakable bond. "She's right. If you want her, you'll have to go through all of us." For a moment, silence reigned. The men were taken aback, their expression shifting from bravado to surprise. The power of unity was palpable in the room. Tara glanced around, catching the courage of their hearts. "I don't want any of this," she pleaded. "This isn't about violence. It's about all of us. Can't you see that?" A shudder ran through the group, but the lead man's brow furrowed deeper. "You think this is about choice?" He sneered, fists clenching. "We don't do choices. We do what we have to do." Ellie felt her resolve solidify like iron. "No. We can choose love over hate. A community is meant to stand together." With unexpected strength blossoming, the group rallied behind her words. "Tara is not just a name to you," Clara spoke up, clutching her child. "She's a person deserving of kindness, just like we all are." The lead man faltered, glancing at his fellow associates as if they were weighing their options in that very moment. You think we care about your little pep talk? Yes, echoed voices of support, converging into a chorus of shared resolve. The moment hung in the air, thick with potential. One of the men shifted uncomfortably, unsure of the path before him. People have died over what she knows. You don't understand the stakes. Ellie stepped forward, her heart racing. Then, let's understand together. There's no power in fear, but there's strength in unity. But just then another thunder crack erupted outside, rattling the doors. The storms were matching their turmoil. Suddenly, the sound of heavy thudding footsteps echoed from outside, sending tremors of panic cascading through the group. They're coming for us, Tara gasped, eyes wide with terror. Stay close, Ellie urged, adrenaline propelling her forward. We need to protect each other. As the doors creaked ominously, the urgency became unbearable. What's it going to be? The lead man demanded, his confidence fading under the strain of the storm. You don't really think you can take us on, do you? Before Ellie could respond, Jake shouted, We may be scared, but we're not alone. We stand together. Suddenly, the door cracked open, swirling with rain and darkness. The air freshened, but the atmosphere thickened. A silhouette loomed beyond. Who goes there? Came another voice, younger, yet heavy with authority. You're outnumbered now. With hearts pounding, the group stood shoulder to shoulder, preparing to stand firm against whatever came next. Ellie's breath caught. This was the moment of reckoning. They were a family now, bound by fear and love, willing to face the storm together, no matter how fierce or dark. Ginger's spirit surged within them, lighting the path forward. Just as the shadows stepped into the light, they revealed themselves. Was it the help they had hoped for, or a harbinger of more chaos? The real fight was not just for Tara, but for the very soul of their community. Would they emerge together, stronger than before, or were they destined to break apart under the weight of their fears? As the silhouette stepped fully into view, Ellie felt a rush of hope. The uncertainty of the moment hung before them, but one thing was clear: love and unity was their greatest weapon. And together, they would face whatever awaited them beyond those doors. And with she gathered crisp. Together, the room echoed with the sentiment, ready for next step in their incredible journey. Now, you've reached the most exciting part of this adventure. Don't delay, subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that unfold. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep this story alive. Comment below with your thoughts, reactions, and feelings about this ending. And don't wait, not even one more second, to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Only true fans understand the importance of doing this.